Hello, hello, and welcome back to Retrieving Sanity with your podcast host, Keegan, and this is your recovery-focused podcast. Today, we are rejoined by a man who understands that the road to recovery might be narrow, but the freedom it offers expands infinitely. Daryl Dittmer is back to help us dismantle the ass-kicking machine we all carry in our heads, and last time, we touched on the 12 steps and the importance of mentorship. Today, we're going to dive even deeper into the unimaginably big belief systems that sustain us. And first off, Daryl, I just got to say thanks for being back on the show. And I'm excited to see why a small, narrow road actually leads to a bigger field for us. So, how do you think that blame is poison, and why do we need to get rid of that blame?
Keegan, I want to say, first of all, thanks for having me back. I really appreciate it. I loved our conversation from last time and excited to speak again.
Yeah.
You know, blame, the first thing that comes to mind for me when I think about blame is that I'm abdicating my responsibility for my life and attaching it elsewhere. And so I'm saying that I'm not responsible. And this is for me. Everything I say is for me, and people can take what they can use and leave the rest, kind of thing. But blame removes my responsibility and it puts it on somebody else. So every time I pull that out of my pocket, I'm cutting my power. I'm cutting my power by whatever degree I'm assigning that blame. And so I can't find the freedom at that point. I can't find that field that opens up where I'm free because I'm dragging all of these things behind me. And a lot of that is, and that's difficult to do. I'm not saying any of it's easy. It's difficult to release ourselves from that blame. But when I have mentioned, even in my book, that it's poison, absolutely true.
Yeah. I just love how you said that whenever we blame, we are actually giving away that power that we subconsciously have. We don't really recognize that we're kind of letting other people dictate our lives for us, right?
100%. Yeah.
Huh.
I don't think there's any other way to sort of, roll up blame and make it make sense, because if I stop and I think, oh, well, they're responsible for how I feel, and it's like, no, they're not. And there may be momentary things where, like, oh, you pissed me off,
Yeah.
there may be momentary things, but then it's my responsibility whether I continue to carry that they piss me off, or do I shift and say, all right, well, yeah, they did piss me off. That was a moment in time. Now, what am I going to do about me to ensure that I'm not carrying that into my future?
Ooh, okay. So, do you think that going back to our first conversation, you had brought up boundaries and how back whenever you first got sober, they weren't necessarily referred to as boundaries. It was just teaching people how to treat you.
Mm.
So, do you think that blame and boundaries kind of go hand in hand in some regard?
I do. I think one way that sort of makes sense to me, thinking about that off the cuff like this, is that I get to choose in many ways. And when you're younger, it's a little more difficult because you're surrounded by family, you're surrounded by, like, maybe who you grew up with, and that limits my ability to choose who is in my life. But as we get older and as we get into adulthood, we have to discern what makes sense for us and what doesn't make sense for us. And I had to discern that for myself over the course of time. And my BS policy, or my no BS policy, became pretty strong, over the course of time, to where I was able to choose who was in my life and who was not. And that included some family members where I had to say, you know what, I'm not doing it anymore. Because if I don't take that responsibility for the ability that I have to discern and make decisions based on that, if I just allow everything to come in, then it's really easy to point that finger and blame and say, oh, well, you did this to me. Well, no, you didn't do this to me. I did it to myself because I kept you in my life, even though I know you were very damaging for my life.
Ooh, that's really hard to hear, and I mean, I'm personally going through something myself, which it's kind of weird because I don't know how to make heads and tails of it because it's something I never really thought would happen, but at the same time, I totally did. So just a quick recap, I got disowned by my parents, which is great, but at the same time, it was really liberating. Like part of me is like sad about it, but it also proves to 3 or 4 year old me that I couldn't really trust to be myself around them. I didn't feel safe for multiple reasons. But that was the thing, is that whenever this kind of came up, it kind of opens the cage for me to kind of step out of it and be like, I don't have to live up to their expectations. I don't have to be this version of me that isn't authentic to myself. And so whenever you're talking about discernment with all that, we just kind of have to live experienced like lessons, right? We can't just sit there and read it from a book necessarily and say, this works for me, because I mean, hypotheticals are great until we put them into practice, right?
100%. Yeah. I mean, I was listening to a podcast, and I won't say anything about who it was, but basically it was about being involved in groups and how groups can limit how we look at the world, because the group has their belief system, and it can be religious, political, whatever it is, doesn't matter what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that group is can limit or will limit what we think about, what we believe, what we allow, what we don't allow, because the group said that that's what I have to do. And so, and it's just like you said with a book. I read this in a book. Well, that doesn't mean that it's true. That doesn't mean that it's necessarily something that fits for me in my life or resonates for me. And groups are wonderful. I owe my existence to the 12 steps. I really and truly do. And I believe that wholeheartedly. Although I believe, and again, this is just for me, that there's an entire universe of wonderful, and I'm just going to call it stuff. And whether it's philosophical or whether it's, world religions, and I don't care who the philosopher is, everybody has something that can contribute to me and my life. So if I join, and I know I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here, Keegan.
Yeah,
So
it's fine.
but if I join a group, I'm limiting myself potentially to what that group thinks. And if I can stay, and I can learn a lot from groups, but at some point I may have to transcend that particular group or that particular belief system or that particular way of looking at life and the world and myself. And because we come into the world with parents, and I'll go back to what you were just talking about, but in many cases, those parents aren't necessarily the best example of how we could live our lives, or maybe they weren't the best for us when we were younger. And I think that happens to a lot of people, and it's okay. It's okay to go through all of the iterations of feeling and grief and everything that I need to go through. Doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It helps me eke out of that skin and potentially grow new skin over time. And that's the value of discernment, because if I never change anything about what I believe and how I believe and who I allow, then I'll never eke out of that skin. I got to go through the pain.
Yeah, gotta go through the pain. It sucks. It's a hard lesson, right? Because we don't want that pain. We want the stuff that comes after the pain. We're like, give me the good stuff. Kind of like recovery, like we have to go through addiction to really find the meaning of life for a lot of us, or to find ourselves even. And whenever you were sitting there talking about how some groups can limit our beliefs, does that mean that you don't really go to AA meetings anymore? Because some people say that if you don't do AA meetings, you're going to die because you won't stay sober. And to those people, I just have to kind of laugh lovingly and just be like, oh, it's okay. You don't want to step out of your comfort zone either. It's all right. Uh, Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I am, and I'm a firm believer that, whatever a person believes for themselves at any given time, the only thing I would say to that person is it working?
Mm,
Is it working? Because I don't need to subscribe to what anybody else believes.
yeah.
And they're allowed to believe that, and that's completely cool. And I'm allowed to believe what I believe. So to answer the question, I have been to meetings over the last, few decades, but the first 8 to 10 years I went to, one or two meetings a day for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And that was how I started in the 12 steps. And then, life and circumstances, whatever, just brought me to a point where I'd moved away from the group that I had started with. And, it just wasn't the same sort of feeling. And I
Mm-hmm.
got involved in other things, and I looked into other ways to believe about life. And honestly, what I found out was the 12 steps isn't the only way to be sobriety recovery. And I'll
Uh-huh.
finish that sentence in a second, but I have to break into something else.
Okay.
Sobriety and recovery is not about sobriety and recovery. It's about changing me. It's not about not drinking alcohol or not doing drugs. It's about changing me. So whatever I need to do to change me for the better, to build my life, to show up for my life, to improve me, um, is what is going to keep me from going back to something that I need or perceive that I need to change how I feel. Because
Mm.
I'll feel so freaking good, I won't be able to stand it if I'm doing the right stuff. And that's truly, and I say that not in jest. I mean, it's really not, because it's true, and I've experienced that. And it's because I allowed myself to move on. So excuse me, not stopping going to AA meetings is going to kill you. No, it's not. The thing that's going to kill you is not changing. And if you
Mm.
don't learn how to change, then you'll have to go back at some point to what makes you feel better. And
Mm.
so I'm a proponent of change in whatever form that takes for any individual in their life.
Yeah. Oof. I love that. I love that 100% because change is inevitable. We can't will something to be static forever. And if we did, then it would just become a piece of history and it might as well be a statue. But even that changes through time. And real quick, we have a guest that asked us or is putting their input, and they said, grandmother was a narcissist and groomed me to align with her agendas all my childhood until I was no longer useful to her and my father. Uh, my father told me I wasn't the son he thought I was when I was 10, and my mother, while I know she loves me dearly, severely controlled and limited my choices and perception of myself. So, how would you give some advice to this person? What would be the next right thing for them in their discovery of self?
I would say, first of all, and I'm sorry that this person had to go through that in their childhood. I truly am. But I would say the the most important thing I learned about this life, and it's kind of strong, but it's true, is that nobody owes me anything. And
Oof.
especially as I'm an adult, especially as I'm older and I'm going through life as an adult, I have to understand that it's my responsibility, whatever it takes, whether it's therapy or books or 12-step groups or other groups or some sort of maybe it's religion. I don't know what's right for anybody. I truly don't. But I would say that I have to find myself in a position where I'm reaching forward and looking for answers for myself, as opposed to looking in the rearview mirror saying, I don't understand why this happened to me. I have to move past it. I have to move through it. I have to feel it. And whatever it takes to do that is what I need to commit to change my life.
Oof. Yeah. Thank you for that wonderful piece of insight, because I mean, it's just kind of going right along with what we're talking about, right? So, to Cool Whip, we hope that you are able to kind of make that progress for yourself. And
Definitely.
it really does kind of remind me, because this whole last lunar, actually we're still in the lunar cycle, or the lunar year. It's the year of the snake, so it's all about shedding skin and stuff. And so
Mm.
you had said something about that sooner, and it just made me think, because I thought about this a couple weeks ago. I was like, whenever you shed skin, or like a tarantula molts even, and it sheds its shell, or crabs, whatever have you, it's growing, but at the same time, after it does that molting, whenever it sheds, it's actually more vulnerable for a little while, and everything seems to be able to kind of get under its skin one way or another. And so it kind of makes me think, like, we have to deal with our triggers in a different way, right? Because we may heal, we may not respond a certain way to certain triggers again, but they may show up again and just attack us from a different angle.
For sure. And much of life is perception. And so how am I we're trained, and unfortunately we're trained, and I think we can untrain ourselves. We're trained to think, oh, you know, eating Captain Crunch tastes good. I love it. I'm so happy right now. I can't believe it. This is the best thing ever, right?
Yeah.
And maybe eating cauliflower is like, oh man, this sucks. I can't deal with it. This stuff is terrible. Actually, I do have a story. My mom made me eat that when I was a kid, and I threw up. I was like sick.
Ugh.
So,
Ugh.
which is fine, whatever, it happened. But my point in saying that is, we don't have to judge everything that happens to us as either good or bad. Sometimes if I'm growing and I'm molting and I'm shedding and I'm vulnerable, it can be a painful process, but it doesn't mean that the painful process is bad. The painful process is probably, and this is hard to do when you're in the middle of it, but probably the best thing that will happen to you. Because because
Yeah.
I think that's really crucial for people to sort of, I guess, understand and integrate that. You know what, I'm going through this right now, and some of the words that really helped me long ago and at times do today is, this too shall pass. It's okay to be going through it. It really is okay. It will change, it will go away, the pain will go away. But the more I allow myself to feel whatever that is, and whether it's cry it out or hug it out or let myself fall apart for a little while, to not suppress it and not hold it down and not, jump into social media to make it go away, or drink to make it go away, or drug to make it go away, or eat to make it go away. The more I can just be with that and feel that pain, that's what allows me to have that new and stronger shell or skin or whatever it is. And ultimately, as I'm moving through life, that's really what I need to develop. I need to continue to develop stronger and stronger parts of me, which paradoxically includes being really, really vulnerable at times and being open to the point where I can be hurt. Because if
Mm.
I can't be hurt, there's something wrong.
Oof.
And I've had to learn that as, a former hard ass, or at least what I thought was a hard ass. I've had to learn, dude, it's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay to put myself in a position to be in pain or hurt.
Yeah. Oh, I love how you brought up that it's a paradox of sorts, because it really does feel counterintuitive, or rather that's what I was taught, was that it was counterintuitive to both be strong and vulnerable at the same time, because it's like, well, how does that make sense? And our guest, they just said, when I shed that skin, I often replaced it with an equally toxic skin until I eventually realized those skins were not mine alone. They were based on what I thought others wanted me to be. My goal in life was to please and impress others, even at my own expense. So, is that something you can relate to? Because for me, I feel like that was what kind of got me into my cycle of addiction. It was just always trying to be inauthentic. And in our last conversation, you brought up Hamlet and Shakespeare with the, what is it? To thine own self be true, correct?
It is. And so to thine own self be true, and then it goes on, and then it must follow as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man, which is beautiful, because it brings it all back to me. It brings it all back to, how am I in the world? And how am I treating myself? And as a consequence of that, how am I treating the world? And if I'm treating myself truly, then even what we talked about before, some people are going to get kicked out. Some people are going to be shown the door. Some people are going to be told that they're not welcome anymore, because I'm being true to myself. And maybe paradoxically, we'll call it semi-paradoxically, and might be fully paradoxically, but showing them the door is probably the right thing for them too. Because I can't, if I know that person is not right for me, or that person is, and I don't want to say causing, but if that person is putting me in a position where I have to choose between a life that I'm living that's authentic and a life that I'm living that may not be authentic, I have to decide, what am I going to do? Because if I keep them in my life, I'm not being true to them, and I'm not being true to me. So sometimes letting them go is the best thing for both of us. And so, it's a hard thing to do, especially, I will say that I have had many instances in my life. Can I swear, Keegan?
Yeah, by all means.
So I had to, I had a channel that was open to whomever wanted to come in. Just show me some attention, and you'll be, it'll make me happier, and I'll be fine, and hopefully you'll be fine. But it turns out to be a disaster, because I'm not discerning what's best for me or my life. I'm just allowing it in because it's giving me attention. It's giving me something that I'm not able to give myself.
Ooh.
And that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem. So I have to develop an ironclad, is to whatever degree I'm capable at any given time. And it's a process as opposed to an event. It takes time. But I have to develop a no bullshit policy. And
Yeah.
that's what I have to do for myself and my life, because if I'm not willing to do that, and I'm not willing to discern and maybe, show some people the door, I can't get past that. I have to, here's what this brings up for me, and I'll make this quick. So you remember Gandalf in Lord of the Rings? And he takes his staff and he hits it on the ground, and this being is coming at him, and he said, "You shall not pass," right? That's what we have to do. That's the resolve that we have to have with certain things and certain people in our lives. And if we don't have that kind of resolve, the beast gets through
Mm,
and eats us up. And I've had that happen to me, and that's why I'm so adamant about it, because I've been there. And so when I developed that no bullshit policy, otherwise known as you shall not pass, it's true.
mhm.
It's real and invaluable to moving my life forward.
Yeah. Oh man, I thank you for that reference because huge Tolkien fan here, and I mean it's just one of those things that I think a lot of people have seen that, and so that gives them that imagery to actually solidify that whole thing for themselves. And I just love getting a look at the inner landscape that is in Daryl Dittmer's head. um, and
Thank
our
you.
guest, they said, sorry for all this splurging. When I find a space where I feel comfortable being honest, it's rare. So it all just comes spewing out. Do you think that that's kind of, first, I want to say to our guest, Cool Whips, thank you for just doing that in the first place, because it's hard to do that. Whenever we're brought or trained to monitor ourselves, to be who we're not, to be inauthentic, then it kind of just eats us away, kind of like what you were saying earlier, right? And what would you say was something you had to keep inside for the longest time, and then whenever you were authentic with yourself, it just kind of came out of nowhere?
Um, I would say speaking my mind,
Mm, yeah.
because and telling people where I'm at, how I feel about a situation or them, or because every time I spoke my mind, I was vulnerable.
Mm,
And so I learned not to speak my mind, uh, you know, early on, because I come from whatever family I came from, right? I mean, we can dice it up and say, okay, I had this happen to me and this and this and this. And we all had stuff, right? We all had stuff. The parents did not get a manual, and many messed things up completely. Many messed it up less so, more so, whatever.
mhm.
So I came from wherever I came from, but I did learn that, pretending everything was cool was acceptable. Don't rattle the cage, don't, stir up the waters, that kind of thing. and
Yeah.
and that was how I grew up. So the hardest thing for me was speaking up. And you know all this stuff carries into adulthood. It just
Mhm.
does. And so my opportunity, upon becoming an adult, is to um and I've been an adult for a couple of years now, uh is that I get a chance to change it. I get a chance to change some of these things, and I get a chance to revise me and how I do things, and how I which, if I revise how I do things, and I'll just use a little example. If my mind is constantly on, and I'm always feeling like, oh man, I can't shut this thing off, and it's crazy, and I don't know what to do, and I just can't stop it, and I can't sleep, and this and that, and I feel nauseous, and I can't eat. What do I need to do? I need to find a way to calm myself. I need to find a way to calm my mind. I need to learn breathing techniques. I need to learn meditation. I don't care how uncomfortable it is. I don't care how difficult it is. It doesn't matter, because that's what I need to do to build me and to
Mhm.
make myself able to withstand some of these things, and allow myself to speak up and to change, and to develop some courage. Because if I'm constantly going and going and going, I can't stop long enough to feel, or to discern, or to critically examine. And those things are all crucial. So that's just one example of, what can I do that will change how I am, but also how I respond to what's outside of me. And I think it's crucial to ask ourselves those kinds of questions.
Oh man, thank you for that because I'd have to say the same thing. Speaking my mind is one of those things that I think is what got me disowned by my parents. But that's kind of the thing, right? We don't learn how to self-advocate. We don't know how to do these things, and it's no one's fault necessarily, but like you said, it does kind of come back to us at a certain point. And I you said something about whenever you became an adult, and so you got sober at 19, correct?
Correct.
uh do you think that that was your mark of adulthood, or do you think it was further down the line? Because I think for myself it was like whenever I was almost 30. That's whenever I turned adult.
Right. I think it's still a work in progress, honestly, Keegan. I mean, it truly is. I think it always is. And I don't know that there's an age threshold that necessarily determines anything.
Yeah.
Um, I know people who have lived their lives in a certain way, and at 55 or 60 or 65 or whatever it is, they're looking to change. And I think that I say adult um, because it puts the responsibility back on me, and
Hmm.
that's why I use that word, because when I take responsibility and when I start to allow myself to think differently and to approach life differently, that's when I that's when I can change. That's when I can be different. That's when I can do different. So I hope that makes sense. It's I got sober when I was 19, but I've been turning into an adult until now, and I just turned 60. So
Nice. Well, congratulations and merry belated womb evacuation day to the mortal plane of existence.
thank you.
uh, and I mean, I'd have to agree that it's kind of weird saying adult, right? Because like every adult above me knows what's going on in the world, right? But I'm that same age, and it's like I have no fucking idea what's going on sometimes. So it does it's kind of that paradox again, right? We're trying to emulate the people that we are looking up to, our role models, our parents, whatever it is. And there's no manual on life. It's just we kind of figure it out as we go. And sometimes it sucks. Sometimes our outside situation heavily influences our inner landscape. And that inner landscape then translates to what we do on the outside, right? And real quick, where can people find you so that they can get your books or any help or any services that you offer?
I appreciate that, Keegan.
Of course.
The best place to find me is on my website, which is daryldittmer.com, and you can see the spelling down there on the screen, but it's DARYLDITTMER.com. Oh, thank you for that.
Yeah.
And so that's the best place to find me. My books are on Amazon. First book is called When I Stop Fighting, and the second book is called When You Stop Fighting. And it's basically books about my story, and with the intent of how can I share my story to help other people have just a little better life. That's really all I'm trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
So those are the best places to find me.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, sir. And I mean, it really sounds like we're trying to advocate for ourselves. We're trying to make agency for ourselves because I don't know about you, but addiction, it ran my life for me because whenever I got it triggered, whenever my nervous system was like, hey, we're overwhelmed, we need to like soothe, we need to do something. It was like, oh, I know exactly how to take care of that problem. It's perfect. And then it became the problem. And I was like, ah, shit, what do I do about that? You
Right.
know? So what are some of the things that you've come across that you've still had to change after getting sober and in your recovery journey?
Everything.
Oh no.
I know, right? It's crazy, but it's true. Like, they say peeling an onion, and I think that's absolutely true, but that's probably overused at this point. But
Eh,
but I think 100% accurate.
Yeah.
So the question for myself is, what am I continuing to dig? And I don't mean dig like beat myself up dig. I mean, every time I go through a situation or a process of learning or grieving or understanding or whatever it is, something else is going to show itself that I need to get my head around, get my heart around. And there's an element of life that I think has much to do with faith. And I believe in a power greater than myself, and I really do everything I can to not define what that is, because and maybe I said this in the last time, but I don't make the grass grow. I don't make my eyes see. I don't make the planets move. I just don't. And so there's something else out there that's a lot cooler than I am, and that's for sure. So the faith is that as I go and as I change and as I try, we have to try. And that's absolutely crucial. And I'll be shown the next things that I need to pay attention to or tackle or deal with or whatever. And that's how the onion peels. They used to say when I was in the 12 steps, if you don't do the 12 steps are going to do you. And I 100% agree, because that has happened to me. And the other way to put that is, and I've said this before, is that if I don't peel the onion's going to peel me. And I 100% believe that. So what is going to continue to make me move down the road? Is it going to be me as an advocate for myself and continuing to find ways to build my life in a better way? Or is it going to be that's going to drag me through life kicking and screaming and in pain all the time? Because that's what will happen if I don't take the responsibility to change. Life will change me, and it's going to suck. And I think that's just true, because I've had it happen to me both ways.
Oh man. I don't think I've heard the onion peeling me if I don't peel it. So thank you for that, because it really does hit home whenever you said life will change me if I don't change myself. And I have to agree. Like, that is the first 30 plus years of my life. It was everything dictating how I was going to be, what I did, so on and so forth. And it's hard, and whenever you were talking about digging a hole, it made me think of a rut, because we just kind of do the same thing over and over, and we're kind of expecting different results. Maybe that's why it's kind of hard to get out of it, because we do the same thing time and time and time again. That, whenever you walk on grass in a certain pattern enough times, it'll actually wear the grass away. So there's the trail for you. Well, that's kind of the rut I think of. And I had a teacher, a spiritual teacher, tell me that a rut just means resisting the urge to transform. And I was like, damn, okay. And I always thought that the transformation was like on the outside, it was like, oh, I need to go get a job. I need to go do this other job. I need to go back to school. I need to do this, that, and another. But the more I'm in this kind of healing and recovery journey, it's like, no, the transformation's on the inside, but it's hard to do whenever all is paying attention to the outside stuff, right?
It is. And a couple of things. One is, they used to say in AA, when I was doing that a long time ago, they said a rut is just a grave with both ends kicked out of it.
Oof.
And I thought, wow, that's kind of powerful. So I want to stay out of ruts if I possibly can.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's crucial. And then the other thing is, one of the things my sponsor told me, and I'm sorry if this is redundant, but he said, first things first, and the rest will be added on. And he told me a whole bunch of really cool stuff, but that's got to be like a top 5. And what that meant to me, and still means to me, is is if I take care of my inner work, and exactly what you said, Keegan, if I take care of my inner work, and this is where the faith comes in, the outside stuff will take care of itself, and it truly will. It doesn't mean I don't have to try. It doesn't mean I don't have to show up and do things and all that, because I do.
Mm-hmm.
But if I take care of this inner stuff, I will be shown the way to take care of my outer life, and I will be given opportunities, and then I need to make choices and decisions, and how far do I want to take this whole ride? But and truly, that's what I'm faced with, and that's a really cool place to be. So it starts with me taking care of this, and once I embark upon that journey, it can be just the coolest ride ever, which I know you're experiencing.
Yeah. And one of the things that I kind of heard in there was that it's okay to be confused, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
it's preferred early early on, man. I think it's preferred.
So I have my reasoning of why confusion is good, but what's your reasoning? I'm curious if they kind of line up without us actually saying so.
Well, my reasoning is, and I used to hear this all the time, but they said two things. One is, if you're not confused, you're not working the program. And the other one is, if you're not confused, maybe you're not trying hard enough. And I think that's sort of how I perceive it. And I don't mean you gotta, kick the shit out of yourself trying to do this or that or whatever, but there is an aspect of am I showing up with all lowercase letters, or am I showing up with uppercase letters? Am I doing it? And chances are, if I'm doing it, I'm walking into uncomfortable, messed up, scary territory. So of course I'm confused, and that's why it's okay to be confused, because it means I'm trying. That's how I perceive it.
Oh, love it. Because I think it's essentially right where I'm at too, because confusion for me is sitting there saying, I haven't been here before. Now what?
Yeah. Love it. Yeah. Love it, man.
And I mean, that now what is kind of the part where we're having to sit there and ask ourselves, like, what did I want to do before all the shit hit the fan, all the trauma stuck to me? Like, who was I before that? But I mean, we can't really do that if we're just sitting there with the Beverly Hillbillies mobile full of junk, right?
Right. And that's such a great point, because I didn't come into this world as an addict. I didn't come in with mental illness. I didn't come in with the dysfunction, that I gather along the way. And that's the Beverly Hillbillies mobile. And so my entire life, after I've, gathered this stuff, whether it's, consciously, unconsciously, environmental, whatever it is, right? Nature, nurture, who knows? I would say obviously mostly nurture based on this particular thought process. But so then the question is, okay, what am I going to do? Because I'm a big fan of I have to keep my face in the windshield. I have to keep my face looking forward. But I also, and this may be another paradoxical type thing, but I also need to look in the rearview mirror from time to time to calibrate and to feel and to allow some of these things to be jettisoned from my life, But I can't spend all my time there, because if I spend all my time there, I'm not moving forward, and so that's kind of the balancing act. And I'm a fan of, probably in the beginning, maybe 60% of my time in the windshield, 40% looking back, just so I continue moving forward. But then as I move on, I should be able to spend 95% of my time in the windshield and 5% looking back, just to make sure my bearings are where they need to be.
I love that. And that is exactly what I was talking about on my solo live stream yesterday. Was I have to look at the inner landscape and see what it was that I was wanting and just try to figure out who I was before all this so that I can kind of direct myself to where I maybe wanted to go in the first place. But as with all things, kind of like we've talked about, even that can change. But I shouldn't shame myself. I shouldn't blame myself whenever things don't line up certain ways or things don't pan out certain ways. Because, like you said, life knows how to life. And
Mm.
damn, I'm not that good at life. So, real quick, we are nearing the end of this episode, so I just gotta ask, do you think that you're ready for our game show segment real quick?
Ready or not, here we come. But yeah, I think I'm cool.
All
I'm
right.
good.
So, everyone out there, we're going to play the next right step. I'm going to give Daryl a life scenario or a recovery paradox, and he has about 15 to 30 seconds to give us the next right step based on his life experience. No overthinking, just the first honest movement of the soul. So, here we go. First up, the resentment. An old friend who owes you a good sum of money suddenly texts you with, "Hey, what's the next right step?"
They text me with what? I'm sorry.
Just, "Hey," just out of the blue, just, "Hey," and they owe you money.
Well, I guess the next right step for me would be to say "hey" back and see what happens. Truly, because I'm either going to pursue that money or I'm going to not allow that person in my life anymore.
Ooh.
And and so that's my decision at that point. Well, long before I get the text, because if they owe me that money, they know it, I know it, and I need to address it in one of those two ways.
Mhm.
So my next thing is just to say "hey" back, and we'll see what happens.
Fair enough. Let life figure it out. And number two, the mirror. You catch the ass kicking machine in action telling you you're not doing enough. What do you do about that?
It's more important to put away the ass kicking machine than it is to do more.
Mm.
Um, and I've been guilty of this in my own life. I can let the kicking machine, and it's been a long time, but I used to let it drive me into doing much more, and then I could make myself sick, and I could give myself more issues than just not having done whatever I was doing. So I think it's so important to say, you know what, ease up, man. Just you can't kick the crap out of yourself constantly. You have to turn that thing off, because the work that you're going about doing, if you got the ass kicking machine on, you're not going to do the right thing anyway. So turn
Ooh.
the ass kicking machine off and then do your work.
Ooh, I love that. All right, number three, the void. You have 30 minutes of total silence and no obligations to fulfill. What do you do with your free time?
Oh, I'm a big meditator, so I'm down, man. I will do my breathing for probably 10 minutes, and then I would do 20 minutes of, and what I like to do I can either watch my breath and I can feel it in my gut or feel it coming in and out of my nostrils, or I will just sit there and feel the breeze across my body. A lot of times I'll just have shorts on and take my shirt off, and sometimes it's really cold. But I'll just feel the breeze on my body, and there's no better way for me to spend the 20 minutes after I got done doing my breathing work.
Ooh, I love that. And it kind of feels like you're just letting life happen again, you know?
Just there's observing life is a really cool thing.
That I think we can dive into that in our next episode if you're willing to come back on because observing without commenting is really hard. Holy hell.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, we'll talk about that next time for sure.
awesome. Number four, the step 10 slip. You were dishonest for silly reason during a small conversation today. What do you do about that?
It depends on where if it's eating me, which chances are it is, I
Mm,
have to address it. And that's all there is to it. I cannot allow those things to fester and to become infected, and because that can take out the entire organism. So I have to address it. If it's affecting me in any way, I have to admit it and apologize or whatever I need to do.
Ooh, I love that. It essentially takes on a life of its own and might just eat you.
Right.
So, number 5, the nature call. You're feeling spiritually disconnected in the middle of a concrete city. What do you do there?
For me, sometimes just closing my eyes and spending a couple minutes on, feeling my breath in and out can change me immensely. Or because it's about being in the moment for me. And that's where the peace is. And that's where I'm away from all that stuff. So sometimes it might just be closing my eyes. And even if it's a brick building, just feeling the texture of the brick and allowing myself to be in that moment can reset me. So it's bringing myself back into the moment, however I need to do that.
Ooh, so reconnecting with yourself somehow. I love it. All right. And last up for this episode, the boundary test. A loved one asks for a quote unquote favor that you know is going to drain your peace. How do you handle that?
It's a no.
Just a no.
It's just a no. Because I've been in that situation many, many, many times. And I am, and I'll just say this real quick, Keegan.
Yeah.
I'm the middle child, whatever that means.
Same.
Whatever the hell that means, it means I'm more screwed up, but I have more opportunities. How's that? But I've been designated, both my parents are deceased. But I've been designated as the older brother. And nobody said that, but all the responsibility has fallen on me for much of my life, and whatever, it is what it is. So, and that's not what I wanted. I wanted an older brother. But I never really got that. And I still don't have it. So the answer in that regard, I've been drained a lot by my family. And my no bullshit policy says, if they are going to pull my peace out of me, they're not. And so the answer is just no.
Just Gandalf them. You shall not pass.
You shall not pass. Yeah. That's it, man.
Daryl, thank you for playing The Next Right Step. And because of that, we are giving you the honorary title of the Architect of Moral Clarity for Retrieving Sanity. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Keegan. Yeah, very cool, man. I like that. That's a great little segment. I love it.
Thank you. We try to curate them for our guests, and sometimes we just don't know how to do it until we do it, So
right.
I'm just glad that you enjoyed it, and I hope everyone else out there did as well. And I do have to ask, last time we asked you what retrieving sanity personally meant to you. So do you still think what you thought last time, or do you want to reiterate what you said last time for those that haven't listened to the first episode?
Well, the really cool part of it is I have no idea what I said last time.
Yeah.
So it might be new, it might be old, I have no idea. But so retrieving sanity to me, and one thing I love about life is that as we go, our perception of things can change immensely. And this is a great question because of the fact that I have no idea what I said before. But it has to be me having a different life and a different perspective and a different way of doing things than I have had. And I don't care how long somebody's been sober or clean or in recovery or whatever. If I'm not continuing to change and continuing to morph my belief system and how I go about things, and a lot of times that's shedding beliefs, that's shedding definitions, that's shedding labels. It's shedding things that I've either put on myself or that others have labeled me as, and I've accepted. So that's retrieving sanity to me, and I'll bet this isn't what I said before, which is great because I want it to be different.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really what it is. It's continuing to move forward very consciously and very intentionally, not knowing what the end is. Can I tell a little tiny story?
Yeah.
So my wife said to me, because I'm starting on this
Mm-hmm.
mentoring, and I don't like the life coach. I just don't like those words together.
Yeah.
But I want to mentor people and I want to help people. And I told you before we hit record that I'm on this journey to do this with people and for people. And I've been doing it informally for a long time, but I'm formalizing it. And she asked me, thank you. She asked me, what does that look like in, a year or 2 years or 5 years? And I said, you know what? I have a conference call on Monday where we're going to talk about it. And other than that, I don't know shit. And so honestly, and I believe that 100% because I'm not the one that needs to plan the outcome. I'm not the one that needs to plan how it looks. I'm just the one that needs to show up. And so however it morphs after Monday, fine, let's go, And I don't know what that looks like. And it's a great place to be. And I say this to my sons all the time, not knowing is a much better place to be than thinking we know. And
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
Oh man. Thank you for sharing that. And I do believe that was different than last time. So it's great because it just really does highlight that things change as we go along. And they may not even change to a new static realm. It's just a different perspective. And we can have multiple perspectives at the same time. So
Absolutely.
Daryl, I just gotta say thank you for being on Retrieving Sanity again because it's been an honor and a pleasure. And I mean, we could go on for hours on recovery because it's a lot of rabbit holes and they all go really deep. So everyone out there, again, go on over to DarylDittmer.com and we'll be able to see y'all in the future with him. And I mean, I just don't know what else to say besides thank you, Daryl. And everyone out there, thank you for listening to Retrieving Sanity on WDJY 99.1 FM. And as always, try to love yourself, love others if you can, but you got to love yourself first. And if you're having any mental health crises, you can dial 988 or text 741-741. And if you're in the LGBTQ plus community, you can dial the Trevor Project up in Canada, and they'll be able to get you sorted out, rightfully so. Hopefully that's right phrasing. I don't mean to offend anyone with that. But we'll see y'all in the future. But until then, much love. Shalom.
Keegan, thank you, man.
Thank you.